welcome everybody. I am PMO Joe, and I have the good fortune to be your host today. We have two of the top PMO leaders in the world joining us, Bill and Adi, and we'll give them a chance to introduce themselves here in a second. For me, I am the leader of the PMO squad. We're a Phoenix-based project management and PMO consulting firm. We serve clients here locally, nationally, and internationally. And I had the good fortune to be one of the top 15 PMO influencers of the year.
Nice.
So if you haven't had a chance, please go check out my session I had when we discussed that as well. But let's focus on today. And today we have two great leaders. I'm so excited. Bill and Adi, welcome.
Thank you, Joe.
Yeah,
Thank
excited
you.
to be here.
Bill, tell us, introduce yourself. Tell everybody about you.
So Bill Dow. So I have 30 plus years of hands-on PMO experience. I'm the director right now at the University of Washington PMO. I managed 8 PMOs at Microsoft, actually, all different shapes and sizes. And I managed 2 PMOs during AT&T and Singular. So back in 2000, 2005, and we'll talk about that in the journey. So I've been a speaker and presenter around the world, from San Diego to Las Vegas to London, England. And also I'm an author, a 4-time author. So 2 PMO books. Yeah, 2 PMO books and 2 project communication tools and project communication books. So super excited to be here. I'm really glad to be part of this conversation today.
All right. Thanks, Bill. Awesome. Adi, how about you?
Hey, first of all, hi guys, this is Adi. And first of all, I would like to say thank you to America for organizing such a phenomenal a presentation and the conference actually, and then this PMO Global Award Conference. And it's pleasure to share the stage with Joe, you, and Bill. I actually work as a global PMO leader for a IT consulting company, and so far, Bill, I have established on 2 PMOs. The first PMO that I established was for a global bank back in 2007. And as a matter of fact, at that time, I had absolutely no intention to establish a PMO. It was all an accident, actually. Yeah. I was managing a program, and that program had 4 projects, and all of those projects, 4 projects, was a mess. The template, just for an example, issue register or a risk register was 4 different types from those 4 projects. So I just wanted to kind of like bring together in one template, one format. And that's how I started. So that was my first PMO. Fast forward to 2013, when I joined this IT consulting company called Sita Corp. And there I saw an opportunity to build this PMO. So I built this PMO. Right now we have 35 people dedicated to PMO managing projects across multi-million dollars, across multiple methodologies, including Waterfall, Scrum. We are mostly focused into SAP, so SAP ASAP methodology, and then SAP Activate. So that is what I can say about me as far as my PMO experience is concerned. Thank you.
You know, as we're recording this, one of my favorite bands of all time is AC/DC. Right, and they're known around the world, and they have a new album coming out. But I've been thinking a lot lately about their catalog of music, and one of my favorite songs they have is "It's a Long Way to the Top If You Want to Rock and Roll." That's right. Well, guess what? It's a long way to get to the top if you want to be a PMO leader, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
And as you guys talked about in your introductions, you have a journey, right? This was an overnight success for you guys.
No.
Tell me more about that journey, right, Bill? What has it been like for you to get to where you're going?
100%. So I started managing projects in 1991. So that's when I first started managing projects, and it was tactical, hands-on project management. Absolutely loved it. But I, like most of the people watching, have stumbled into the PMO manager. So from 91 to 97 or so, I was a project manager, and I was tactical, and it was all IT. But then we moved down to America and did a little bit of consulting. But then I got on to AT&T. So AT&T Wireless at the time, 2000, 2005. And so I started running my first PMO, which was a data warehouse PMO. And so I had 15 20 people that I was managing, all data warehouse type of projects. So I learned a lot about data warehousing and data schema and whatnot. And then you guys may remember, but AT&T and Singular merged.
Yep.
And when they merged, and that was a hostile takeover, that was unbelievable. But my PMO grew. And so I had 35 people. And so I had a management layer. I had people all around the country. And so again, it's much larger, still the data warehouse PMO, but it grew tremendously, with having admin staff, with having management staff. Then I went to Microsoft, and Microsoft, I actually ran 8 PMOs there, and I ran all sorts of different types of PMOs. So I ran a supportive PMO. I ran directive PMOs. I ran it in marketing. I ran an agile PMO. So I ended up running 8 different PMOs at Microsoft in different organizations, starting in IT and moving from marketing to operations to services, back to IT again, and back to services again. And so because Microsoft was so large, you were able to do that. And I was actually known as the PMO guy at Microsoft. And so when there was a PMO that started, they tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Hey, I need you to come over and start building this." So I would just go from place to place. From there, I went to University of Washington, and that's where I currently am. I've been here for a year. It's a directive PMO. I have 35 in my staff. I again have management layer, admin. I have tools people. I have business analysts. So it's a much more robust PMO, focusing on facilities, focusing on interfaces, but we don't do agile. So we do a little in the analytics and the dashboarding, but our world is not an agile world. In medical, you just don't see agile in that. So the one agile PMO was at Microsoft in marketing. So that was the journey. So I'm up to 10 now. So it's been quite a ride since from the 1991.
Oh, so Bill, actually, we should call you PMO Guru. Actually, kind of. Probably you were one of the first people. You're talking about 95, 96. That's when you started managing the PMO, right?
PMO
2000. Yeah. So even 2000 kind of like pretty early for establishing and managing a PMO. I mean, that was really great, actually.
Yeah.
That's
it's
really
been
good.
great. It's been a great experience. But I stumbled onto it from project management.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, absolutely. Same here. Actually, as a matter of fact, when I joined after college, I was a hardcore technical guy. I used to do coding in like C. I used to write shell scripts, Unix shell scripts. I don't know how many. I mean, I'm sure you guys have heard about Unix.
Of course.
And I used to write script on Perl and Perl script. Perl, I think at that time it was 5 or something. I had absolutely no intention to go into project management. Absolutely no. I wanted to be on the technical side of the project. That's it. One fine day, I saw this guy who was a project manager, and he was getting the status update. So he was asking, "Okay, Adi, what you have done and why you have not done this?" He asked somebody else, "So what is the status?" And then I kind of like knew about his salary. So I said, "No, this is what I need to do." That was my motivation. But then obviously I started working on a ERP implementation for Government of India, Ordnance Factories actually, and Government of India at that time in 97, 98 timeline. And I was kind of like pretty much I would say across the cohort, across the project team, I was the only one who had like 3 or 4 years of experience, and everyone were kind of 1 or 2 years of experience. And what happened was the project manager, who was supposedly had like 10 or 12 years of experience, who had, I don't remember exactly now, he resigned. And that was the time when Y2K boom was going on. He moved to the United States. And I was like, and then my boss said, "Adi, you are the project manager." I said, "What?" I don't know what is project management is. I don't know the concept of project management. I have absolutely no idea what is the difference between issue and risk. I have absolutely no idea how to manage the resource. I have no idea how to go and resolve a conflict. So the only person I used to talk to was my computer. That is what I used to do at that time. But what happened was I started learning. And even though I was not prepared for my role, but slowly I started understanding those kind of nitty-gritties of project management, the nuances of project management on the job. I did some not online, but I did some training at that time, and I started understanding. That's how I get into the project management. Now, slowly, but with continuous learning, I would say that I was able to get to a point where I can go and talk to people. Now, I remember this story, and still I get goosebumps when I remember that and when I talk about that. That was my first presentation, and I'm talking about he is in front of the client, who is the top bureaucrat at Ministry of Defense, Government of India. And I had 6 years or 7 years of experience at that time, 2 years of experience as a project manager, and my first presentation, as a matter of fact, in front of that kind of people, that kind of person. And I was I wanted to go to restroom 5 times. In 5 minutes. That is what my scenario was. Believe me. And then this gentleman, he was so nice, and he came to me, and probably he felt that. And he was a little bit elderly at that time, obviously. And he asked me, "So you are Adi, right?" I said, "Yes, sir." And he told me that, "Son, no matter what, I think you will do great." That is the only thing he said. That's it. He said, "Son, no matter what, you will do great." And I remember that part, and then I remember end of the presentation, and people were clapping. So that was the kind of support I got when I was moving from my technical role to the project manager role, and then forward. And like I said, right. I continued to work as project manager and program manager. Then I started into PMO in 2007 for some time, and then again in 2013.
So you were hooked. And it's funny, you tell that story, and as you were speaking, it makes me think. Often I get asked, "How long have you been a project manager?" Right? And Bill, you would talk about back in the 90s, Nadi, and so this year I turned 52, and I tell everybody I think for about 51 years I've been a project manager.
Yeah, exactly.
Because
that's right.
We're wired that way, right? I don't have to be a project manager.
Right.
Yep.
I just am a project manager.
Yeah, exactly.
But now you guys have reached kind of the pinnacle of your career to the point of this recognition, right? Top PMO leader in the world. What an incredible honor. And certainly there has to be success associated with that, right? So, Bill, share some PMO success with us. Help us understand how you've gotten to this point.
Yeah. So when I think about success, I think success a little differently. And what I think is I got about a 50-50 thing going here. So I've ran 10 PMOs, 5 of them have been successful, 5 of them have been failures. And so what do we mean by that, right? And so really when I think about success in the PMOs that I've been successful with, 2 critical components, and people won't love this, but they are what they are. One is they've been directive. They've been directive PMOs. And so, hey, PMs, I need status reports on Friday at this time, because it's just that consistency. And when you do directive and you give them a common template, you give them a common time frame, it just seems to work, especially when you think scale, right? You think 35 PMs running 5 or 6 projects each, think of that. The second part about success has been leadership. So when you get leadership support, and leadership has said, "Bill, it's your org," and I have that now, thankfully. But I haven't had that, and I've had that before. But it's your org, you run with it, it's your budget, you hire and fire. Then success is just easy because you get to make those decisions based on all the experience you bring to the table.
Yep.
What do failures mean? Failures mean the executives are no longer interested, and they're like, yeah, okay, yeah, run this or don't run this, or they get shut down. And I've been through PMO shutdowns as well, both from an organization perspective, so massive layoffs and just shut the organization down, or I ran a PMO that was associated to a program and the program failed. Therefore, the PMO shut down and we laid people off. Mm-hmm. So failure is, success and failure, I kind of take it from how long and what happened within the lives of the PMOs that I ran.
Nice. Let me ask a question, just to follow up on that.
Sure.
With success. In your journey, you shared time going from project manager eventually into PMO leader.
Yeah.
When did you get the training how to be a leader?
Yeah, that's a great call. And that's one thing is once I got into that management position and I was functionally managing people, then I started taking leadership classes and leadership courses and mentoring. One of the books or two of the books I've written was from a Bruce Taylor. He's a 50-plus year project manager, and he's 81 right now, so he's able to have 50-plus years. And so we got a lot of leadership in HR and mentoring from him that I would then be able to take to my tactical day to day. But no, that's a critical component, and it's a really interesting part because a lot of project managers think that they can manage people from an HR perspective because they manage a team. And I got suckered into that same conversation. I said, no. I need to take some really good leadership classes. AT&T had some great ones. Microsoft had some, but that's really where you help become a manager and some from an HR perspective.
Yeah. And Adi, thinking back to your success, right? It sounds like that first one, right? When that Minister of Defense, I think it was, you mentioned, gave you those words of encouragement and you felt empowered.
Yep.
What are some of your successes or even success criteria, right? How do you evaluate and determine success within your PMO?
So, first of all, what Bill mentioned, right? I completely agree with his point number 2, that is leadership support, right? In 2007, when obviously I was not building a PMO, that was not the intention, but I had pretty good amount of good leadership support, I would say. I had I was supported by my leadership pretty well in that perspective. Okay, you want to build a template for risk register or you want to build a template for a project status report, go ahead and build it, implement it across your 4 projects and let's see how it goes. And as a matter of fact, it was so successful that he took those templates, he took those processes, he took those procedures and started scaling it across the organization. Now, in 2013, when I joined this organization, when it comes to PMO, when I start talking about PMO, and I was literally kind of thinking, shall I continue to work here or not? Because the kind of support that I was getting was nil. And as a matter of fact, people started seeing me as a threat. But over a period of time, when, of course, my CEO, he supported me to a certain extent, but still he also needs to have some kind of executive level support to support me. Now, he gave me an offshore resource to work with me so that I can start building. So I started slowly. The first thing what I did was, okay, let's go and talk about the status reporting. I want to make this consistent across the board. And slowly, once again, I started putting those processes in place, procedures in places, time management system, some sort of tools that we need to implement. We need to implement some sort of measurement, like you said, how you measure your success. How am I going to measure the success of a project? So I started measuring those success in terms of, and we are consulting an organization. What we measure is dollar. How many dollars we are getting in, kind of, right? That's the bottom line. So we started measuring those numbers. What kind of client satisfaction are we getting? Is our employees satisfied? So we started measuring those things and started differentiating with the project, between the projects that is under the PMO purview and the project which is outside of the PMO purview. If they are on similar technology and if they are of similar size in terms of number of resources, dollar amount, or the multi-year, how many years of project, the duration of the project. So we started comparing those numbers, and that we did for almost 1.5 to 2 years. And what we saw was there was a good amount of jump in terms of revenue, in terms of profitability for the projects that were under PMO as compared to the projects which are outside the PMO.
Mm-hmm.
Less escalations from client on the project that are within the PMO, because we were handling those escalations. We had standard processes, we had standard templates across those projects, and that is how I think we built this PMO, and that was the success criteria. One thing I would like to add here is actually, as a matter of fact, two things. One is constant communication. No matter what kind of support we were getting, whether the PMO that I built in 2007 or in 2013, communication, continuous and constant communication, that was the key. Okay. And the another thing that I always believed in, and I implemented in both the places, is principles over practices. As a matter of fact, whatever principle that we are talking about in terms of managing a project, in terms of managing the risk or cost, whether it is the IT organization or is it the marketing or finance organization, principles over practices, that we always supported. In that way, it helped actually a lot.
So go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, sorry, just one follow-up. So when you were building your PMO and you were putting out your processes and your risk logs, did you ever formally say what type of PMO you are?
No.
So because one of the things you jumped on, you said, hey, the executive support's really important, but you never jumped on the directive. And so let me ask you this, is what those status reports, did everyone have to use them?
Yeah. So what happened was the value that we were creating by having a uniform status report, by having a change management process that is visible to everybody. Of course, what we also did before that was we listed down the PMO roles and responsibility. What is Adi's responsibility? What is the role of Adi's team here? So we listed 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and we had it available across the board. Yeah. Now, as we move forward, and that role and responsibility continue to change, right? And what we did was we started with 1 project, 2 projects, 3 projects, and when in that way it keeps adding value to those project team members and the organization, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
So slowly, it doesn't happen overnight, like Joe, you mentioned at the beginning. It doesn't happen overnight.
Right.
Over a period of 3 or 4 years, I think the leadership team started seeing the value in terms of what we are providing.
Yeah.
So
where I was going with that was, if you call it out what type, so I'm directive, I'm supportive, whatever the type is, right? Then that expectations from both your management layer is set.
Yes.
And from your folks down below are set.
Yep.
And so if you've ever ran a supportive PMO where you're offering all these things up and no one takes them and no one cares, and you don't care because you're running a supportive PMO and your job is just to put the stuff up there, whether they take it or not, it's a very different conversation than running a directive to say, you must fill in this status report on Fridays at 4:00. So that's why I was wondering if you were kind of actively talking about the type.
Yeah. So we actively never talked about the type, but we started with the supportive one. We just built one template and put it across the board. This is there, like a la carte menu in a restaurant. Either you pick it or leave it, right?
Yeah.
But slowly, when the people started picking it up, so when they started following it 6 months down the line, 1 year down the line, we started seeing value. And then, but we never formalized the name that, okay, right now we are supportive, but right now we are directive. But we keep adding the roles and responsibilities of the PMO. It goes bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. That's all.
So you're directive. Bottom line is you're directive.
Yes.
What I love about these conversations is peer-to-peer interaction, right? And this is going to be part of a conference about the PMO Global Awards and what we're doing right in the industry.
Yes.
But along with what goes right, we learn probably our best lessons from maybe what didn't go so right. And what advice or guidance do you have for those new PMO leaders that we're going to be watching during? I'd rather learn from your mistakes than mine, right? What can you share with that, Bill? What's something to share there?
It really starts with executive support. And what I say, if you don't have executive support, don't build your PMO because it's not going to be successful. And so, and it's not just one. It's get a couple executives and get a couple of executives, because what we see is about a 3 to 5 year turnaround of our leaders, which means PMOs will last in that 3 to 5 year window. So if you get a couple of executives and one of them leads, you still have that extra support. So challenges I've ran into is the executives just go away, and you no longer have that executive support. Yeah. And one of the fundamental reasons why is because the PMO is never at the level of HR, or it's never at the level of finance, or it's never at the level of IT, right? Depending if your PMO is in and out of IT. And so because of that, you're constantly searching for executive support. Yep. You're constantly looking for, this is an organization just as important as HR, just as important as finance. And so some of the biggest challenge has been really keeping and holding on to that executive support and getting it recognized as a formal organization in your company or so.
Yeah, and I know, within the PMO squad, right, our primary service offering to the industry is the purpose-driven PMO.
Yeah.
Where the first thing we do is define the purpose, but it's a continuous process, right? So 6 months, a year, 18 months from now, our purpose could be very different. And who drives our purpose? Our executive leadership, right? So if we don't stay engaged with that executive leadership team, we see this with clients all over the world, Bill. You're right on, right? Yep. You're going to fail. And we even see it on project execution, right? Lots of data to support that. Adi, how about you? What do you see?
Remember when I mentioned at the beginning of conversation or sometime middle that when I joined this organization and I talked about the PMO, I felt like it's a threat for my job. People were kind of like staring at me and what the heck you are talking about, right? And that was not from the fact that I mentioned anything about PMO. It was from the fact that I mentioned, I can build a PMO and give it to you within 6 months timeline. And that is where the challenge started. And that is the first challenge I faced actually. It's the pace at which you want to go and build a PMO is immaterial. It's the pace at which the organization wants to go and take this transformation from wherever they are to having a PMO within the part of the organization. Like Bill, you said, in parallel with HR, in parallel to finance, in parallel to any other organization, right? The moment I said I can build a PMO within 6 months, they said, who the hell are you? Get the heck out of here, right? But I realized that what I did was I slowed down and I said, okay, let me understand at what pace organization want to move. As long as they are ready to move, I can go and help. And I can kind of like slow it down for myself and go hand in hand with the organization. That's the first challenge I faced. Now, the second one I faced, and that's obviously, slowly we got the executive support and understand that, okay, this is how they want to build. I started providing the value. Being a consulting organization, we spend $1 and we want to earn $10 out of it, right? Now, that is what we started doing. And slowly when we're providing value today, it's a profitable PMO. We do provide project management consultancy to outside organizations as well. Now, the second challenge that I faced was help that is available within the organization, I am saying. Now, it's a matter of finding those nooks and corners within the organization from where you can get help. Help is available no matter what within the organization. I started as a program manager here in this organization and become program director and then head of the PMO. Now, I knew people who are working at the ground level for project management, and like somebody came to me, and one of the clients from banking sector, they came to me and asked me, we need to build a roadmap for a transformation journey for a major global bank. And I had absolutely little idea, I would say, about the bank, but I know a person who came from finance and came from bank and have some background in project management. I started talking to him. So what I'm trying to say is, and that was obviously like 3 or 4 years down the line. But what I'm saying is the challenge is finding the information, finding the help, even though it is available within the organization, but getting to those nooks and corners and identify that you can get that help and ask for that help. I got that help. So that was really actually, it started with the challenge, but then it became a very helpful aspect for overall this PMO.
And it seems like there's a little bit of alignment there with what Bill's talking about, right?
Yeah.
If you don't have that sponsorship or getting that help becomes a challenge as well.
Yep.
So where did change management, so ProSci or any of the change models, where did that come into play in some of the work that you were doing?
So, we are mostly, again, we did not follow any of those standard organizational change management processes. What we did was, like I said, constant communication and building relationship with the executive. I have very little idea about ProSci or any other change management formally, but then what we did was communicating constantly with the leadership team, with the people at the ground level, with the people with whom we are working day in, day out, understanding their challenges. That is how actually we actually implemented a feedback mechanism as well in terms of what they are looking for, what they want, what is not going right. So that is how it helped. And sometimes we increase the pace of the change, sometimes we slowed it down.
Got it. Great.
Yeah. What's interesting, right, is you both have talked about your time starting as project managers, or in Adi's case, technical, and then into project management.
Yep.
And now as leaders, right, your role as a leader is to motivate, inspire, to groom project managers to help on their career path. Right, and this is what separates the PMO leader from a project manager.
Right.
You're running an organization and a function.
Yeah.
How do you do that? How are you successful in grooming your bench, your talent pool, training, etc.?
Yeah. So I'll jump in. So
yes,
one of the things that I've set these up for years now, but one of the fundamental conversations you have to have is project managers, when they're running a project, they're not people managers, right? And so they don't have the HR side. And so what we've done is we've established some processes and some programs to create that HR view. So for example, I've written about and have implemented mentoring programs, right? So let's have some of those types of conversations, mentor to mentee. I've created PMO buddy systems. I've done that across multiple PMOs where we tie two PMs together, or two liked roles in the PMO together, and they're buddies, and they actually have some of these conversations. And then finally, I've done it twice now, but I've built PMO leadership programs. And these PMO leadership programs give the IC, so the individual contributor, a path to either stay in IC or actually move into a informal kind of a stretch assignment, if you would, mentor, lead role. So they'd have a lot of the HR responsibilities, but they're actually not their HR manager. Mm-hmm. So I've really built 3 types of programs that have given the folks that HR type of responsibility without actually formally being HR, because you don't have a lot of open jobs where you can just slot people in. You got to look for opportunities where they get that HR experience without actually being HR managers.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the 3 types of programs.
You had mentioned IC, and just to
Individual
clarify, that's
contributor.
individual contributor, right?
Yeah. Who want to be HR managers, who want to move into that HR path.
Okay. Interestingly, Bill, you mentioned about PMO buddy system, right?
Yeah.
We also have a similar process.
Cool.
So in our PMO organization, what we have done is we have actually implemented 2 approach. One is the bottom-up approach. In bottom-up approach is we generally, and I have seen it in my previous organization, my manager used to say that, Adi, now it is time you go and take this technical training. Now you go and take this project management training. Now you go and learn this thing. So I was like, okay, it's good for me. But then at the same time, I was like, why I have to learn when he's saying that? So what based on my experience, what we did was we implemented this bottom up approach where we are not dictating our people, and I always believe people is our asset.
Yeah.
So we are not dictating our people to go and learn SAP functional area or go and learn technology or something else that may or may not be his or her interest. So what we did was we implemented this approach where you as an employee or I as an employee can say that, okay, I want to go and go and do this PMP certification 6 months down the line. Or what I can say is now I am from project management area, enough of this project management. Now I want to go and go back to my Unix, but then I need to fine tune my skills on Unix. So I want to go and take this training on Unix. So it's basically coming from the employees saying that, okay, this is what I want to do. And our internal target is to approve those 95% of requests.
Right.
Sometimes people say that recently, this happened. One junior resource, he was like 2 or 3 years of experience, maybe 4 actually. And he wanted to manage this one SAP implementation as a project manager, and SAP implementation is generally of complex nature. So, of course, I told him that this is what you want to get into. But the whole idea here is it will be very difficult for you to manage this project of your own. But I understand that you want to learn. So what we did is similar to what your buddy system is. We have that project. We have another project manager who working in another SAP project. And we kind of like tagged them along. So the whole idea was this project manager who is managing the project got a helping hand. On the other side, this person actually get to learn and see how exactly this project manager is handling client, how exactly this project manager is managing the scope of the work, how exactly he is resolving the conflict between 2 resources. So it's kind of like on the job training scenario that we created. So in that way, we fulfilled his desire to move into project management area. At the same time, we got the help for this project manager who was kind of like complaining day in, day out. And of course, 2-3 months down the line, the younger project manager, he actually becomes billable. So my boss was also happy in that way. So the whole idea is this bottom-up approach where employees actually put the request and we approve it. Now, the another idea is top-down. As an organization, we do need to take care of our capacity, our requirement. We know that for 2021, we are getting 12 different SAP projects in the first 6 months. So if that is the case, do we have enough resources or not? So we start putting our resources based on our understanding what they want to do. We ask them if you want to go and get the FIC finance training, or if you want to go and get the procurement training, functional area, and so on. Now, this is the 2 approach that I'm talking about. One is bottom up, and the other one is top down. So how are we going to implement is we generally implement it by training. We have very good certification program. We have a lot of knowledge sharing sessions. Actually, we dedicate one day, that is third Friday of every month only for this learning. and we don't do any client-related work unless until that is critical. So that is the way we want to kind of like we are handling our resource capacity, we are handling our knowledge retention, we are handling their career growth, and technology area where they want to move into.
So both of you obviously very strong programs to guide career growth. And I think back to a time early in my career as a project manager, because ultimately, right, we have people listening who are PMs as well as PMO leaders.
Yeah.
And my boss back then said, "Hey, Joe, you have to answer a question. Do you have a job or do you have a career?" And nobody had ever asked me a question like that before because I was kind of a young project manager. I didn't think in the terms or with the lens of a career.
Right.
Yeah.
And what you guys are talking about, right, is as the PMO leader, helping people see that they have a career and here are tools to grow.
Yes, exactly.
But for everybody listening who is a PM, right, own your own career.
That's right.
Utilize the resources available to you that your boss and supervisors and organization has, but build your own career path. And I think when you own it, you're going to be more successful.
Yeah, that's critical. Yeah. I paid for my own PMP. And so it's my career. It's not my company's career. It's my career. And so I'm responsible for my own training. And so I 100% agree, Joe.
Yep.
So we're getting short on time. We've probably got enough time left for maybe one round of additional topics here. And when we think of PMOs, right, we certainly think about directive and supportive, as you mentioned, Bill, or purpose-driven PMO. But ultimately, the PMO has to provide some service, right? What are we providing to the organization to help them get benefit out of it, right? What as a PMO leader, Bill, are you providing to your organization?
Yeah, it's great. And actually, it's funny because for the last 7 PMOs or the first 7 PMOs, it was all about project management. It was all about implementing PMI. We got to have risks. We got to have issues. And I went, wow, that was a big failure. So what I did is I pivoted. So for the last 3 PMOs, it's been about the business problems. What business problems do we have, and do they have, and can the PMO solve? So we'll have something like there's no consistency in how we execute, right? And so the PMO service would be around methodology and training. There's no communications, right? We don't know what the heck's going on. A PMO service, dashboards and reporting. So I basically, in the last 3 PMOs, I went into those PMOs, focused on business problems, and then how do my PMO service offerings map to those business problems? And that was a fundamental shift. It really was, because when you go in there and you preach PMI and risks and issues and actions and decisions, they don't want that. They want how does the PMO move the business forward? Exactly. And that's really been helpful for me in the last PMOs, the last ones I've written, and this one I'm doing now.
And Bill, did you come up with that service catalog working with the business, or did you supply that to the business?
No, I had to work with them because I came into these companies and I had no idea of what problems they had. So I was all about listening. I was all about understanding. We can't do this. We don't have this. I don't know what's going on in my projects, or whatever the case may be. So they were their business problems that I applied to the PMO. And it has just worked out so well, because I can go back to them and say, you said we had this problem. Here's what we've done about it. And then we could start doing metrics and whatnot on it. So,
actually, as a matter of fact, when I was appearing for my program management certification, PGMP, back in 2012, and I found out they have something called benefit realization. And I wasn't aware of that benefit realization before PGMP certification. In my mind, okay, we have done the project, hand it over to business, that's it, right? And then when we support, we get money out of it. That is what I was thinking. But then there's a benefit, actually. So the business is reaping that benefit out of that project implementation when they implement the product of the project, right? And that is what, Bill, you're talking about.
Yeah. Ultimately, Bill, you had talked earlier about PMOs not being at the same level as IT or HR as a function.
Yeah.
And I think historically, what we've learned is that the PMO isn't providing value. Therefore, the organization didn't elevate it in the sense of responsibility.
That's right. Yeah.
But when we shift to the mindset you've had on your past three, where you're a service provider that is value driven, we now get elevated, right? And I think ultimately, conferences like this and organizations that are promoting PMOs and value driven approaches helps the PMO industry advance our profession and get us at that common footing.
Yeah. And it gives you opportunities. So if you see vice president of the PMO, right, besides banks, but if you see those types of jobs, those companies will value, right, that, because what they've done is they've taken that vice president level, which is a very high level in most companies, and they've said, this is where the PMO sits in our organization. Right. And I know banking's got a little bit different around that term, vice president, but in general, that's a really key component. The minute you can get a PMO to be as important as HR, as important as finance, you got a great company. That's ideally exactly where you want to work.
Well, everybody, thanks so much for listening in. Unfortunately, we lost Adi. This is the beauty of technology in this COVID world we're living in, that we can't be connected in person. So we have to connect via technology. But what amazing insight we did get from Adi today. And Bill, I think it's very clear to see why you guys are two of the top PMO leaders in the world. You both have impressive backgrounds, and what tremendous guidance that you've given. And Adi is back.
There he is.
Thank you, Adi. What I want to do is just say, on behalf of PMO Global Awards from me personally, thank you for the opportunity to chat with both of you.
Thank you.
And want to give both of you an opportunity to let people know how they can connect with you and get in touch with you to learn more about what you're doing. So, Bill, we'll start with you.
Yeah. You can definitely get me on Dow Publishing LLC or Bill Dow at dowpublishingllc.com. That's one way of doing it. But thank you, Joe, and thank you for allowing me to present today. Because I really appreciate the insight and really appreciated talking through and really having a great conversation. So thank you.
Yeah.
Yep.
Adi, how about you? How can folks connect with you?
Absolutely. First of all, I definitely would like to say thank you to Americo Pinto and rest of the PMO Global Alliance team. Absolutely phenomenal job from their side. And it's my pleasure actually to share the stage with Joe, you and Bill. You guys are great achievers. And as a matter of fact, I'm thrilled to share the stage and camera with you. As far as people who want to connect me, call me on my cell, text me, anything. My cell number is country code 1, area code 916-847-0386. On my email ID is adityanlal@yahoo.com. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn as well with the same email ID. I would be very happy to chat with you.
Well, thanks so much. And folks can connect with me at the PMOsquad.com, or you can connect with me on LinkedIn. I think I'm the only Joe Pusz out there on LinkedIn. And of course, I get to have conversations like this with PMO leaders from around the world on my radio show. So please check out Project Management Office Hours. We're a podcast that is available on all the podcast platforms all around the world. And we get to tune in and listen to great conversations like this. So once again, thanks both of you.
Thanks
to PMO Global Awards. And I hope everybody enjoyed our session.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.